Hello, welcome to Labor News at Work. Today's episode deals with Ford Motor Company's tightening of management of salaried employees. This episode raises a question about whether we are entering a new era of post-pandemic management. It's using a case illustration provided by recent reports on Ford's management of salaried workers as reflected in its return to office policy. I'm Merrick Masters, Professor of Business Emeritus, commentator, podcaster, author. You can find me at my YouTube channel. Today is December 31st, 2025. On June 25th of this year, Ford Motor Company informed 25,000 of its U.S. salaried employees that a significant change was coming in their work routines. Effective September 1 of this year, the company will require most staff to be physically present in the office at least 4 days a week. This brief excerpt from another report on the Ford's new policy shows how it compares to the previous one, which mandated 3 days per week in the office, at least for some of its salaried workers. This particular chart shows how Ford's new policy compares to the policy at General Motors and Tesla. This is based on a report that was provided in the article which I cite here. Ford has intensified its policy through various announcements, according to some reports, to employees that have come through email. According to one report, since announcing the policy, Ford has sent some emails to employees telling them they are not badging in enough and warning that they could face termination if they do not improve their attendance. This is according to a report from Business Insider based on comments from 3 current and former Ford employees. Another report indicates that communications outline that staff not meeting the new attendance standards could face disciplinary measures up to and including termination as a last resort. Though many of the warnings that were apparently sent out to employees by email and other means were acknowledged as system errors. I'm not certain exactly what that means, except miscommunication to certain employees, which I'm certainly produced a lot of anxiety and uncertainty. Ford executives said that this move is more than just a rule, it's a strategy to make the company more agile, innovative, and efficient, which is understandable under current economic pressures to increase performance in an industry that is relentlessly competitive. Some employees described anxiety, according to one report, about the change, especially as automated emails mistakenly flagged both compliant and non-compliant staffs. Ford tried to reassure them through their HR department, but it's noted in this report that this period of adjustment has highlighted the complexity of enforcing standardized policies across diverse work groups. President Trump set the tone on day one of his new administration, his 47th presidency, when he issued a memo mandating that all federal workers in their remote work arrangements, unless granted a specific exception, and this would take effect as soon as practicable, and guidance issued by the Office of Personnel Management in order to implement this presidential memorandum. It said that the presidential memorandum reflects a simple reality. The only way to get employees, and this is the language used by the Office of Personnel Management, back to the office is to adopt a centralized policy requiring return to work for all agencies across the federal government. It went on to say that seeking to cajole individual federal agencies to try to get employees to return to the work site has not succeeded. I have a few observations to make on this case in a broader context of management in the post-pandemic era. It's my belief that we have change the tone of management to a more stringent managing of the workforce to change culture and improve organizational performance. It will be used to deal with, this change will be used to deal with attitude, behavior, and performance problems as perceived by organizations, to also streamline the organization horizontally and vertically. That's to delayer it, and in the process reduce headcount to cut labor costs. Trump set the tone in day one of his 47th presidency, as I mentioned, by imposing a return to office mandate. Ford's new policy is applied to salaried employees where workplace norms are different from hourly workers in manufacturing and elsewhere, who are more often, as in the case of Ford, represented by unions. These new policies, return to office, etc., are difficult to execute, particularly if they are a sudden departure from long-standing practice. And by long-standing, I mean over the past several years since the pandemic, in which organizations granted people, to a great extent, remote work options. Implementation of a new policy that is more stringent in terms of requiring in-person work to be as smooth as possible requires careful communication and integration with new disciplinary standards. They're often bound to be bumps and disruptions on the road to implementation, but these need to be carefully watched by the organization to smooth out as much as possible. This episode will be followed by more on what I consider to be a new era of post-pandemic management and what it means, particularly in the context of AI, delayering organizations, and changing performance requirements in terms of hiring and operations on a day-to-day basis. Here's a little bit about myself. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. Stay tuned for more, and I invite your comments about this and any insight you might have about Ford and other companies' policies in this regard. Thank you and have a good day.